Okay, this video continues on page 128, and we're going to focus on the word problems, starting on number 15. We'll just kind of go through one problem at a time. I will set up the problem on my whiteboard, show my work, use my calculator to check my answer. Mostly just try to help you understand how to set these up. Number 15 reads, Corinne has 9 6/10 pounds of trail mix to divide into 12 bags. How many pounds of trail mix will go into each bag? Now, if you're a little bit unclear about how to set this up, it kind of tells you to set this up as divide the trail mix by the number of bags. So that means to divide 9 6/10 by 12 bags. So if you think that through, well, 12 can't go into 9. It really can't, so we're going to get answer 0 and something. 12 goes into 9 0 times. And now we're asking ourselves, how many times does 12 go into 96? And your multiplication chart shows you that 8 times 12 is 96. So I'm going to put an 8 here. 8 times 12 is 96. And I get no remainder. And that's our symbol that we're done. I put a smiley face there. So I get 0 and 8/10. So I'm going to record that on my line. But this is your friendly reminder that on a word problem, you have to use a unit. So reread the question to get your unit. It says how many pounds of trail mix will go into each bag. That tells you that the unit is pounds. I like to write LBS for pounds. 0 and 8/10 pounds. And lastly, I really like to check on a calculator. You can check by multiplication. I could punch in my quotient, 0.8 times my divisor, 12. And I always like to get in my head, what should it be? It should be my dividend, which is 9 6/10, which it is. Okay, perfect. Great. Moving on to number 16. I will erase my annotations here and read number 16, set it up, solve it. Number 16 reads, Michael paid $11.48 for sliced cheese at the deli counter. The cheese cost $3.28 per pound. How much cheese did Michael buy? All right, so the first challenge for number 16 is setting it up correctly. What are we going to divide by what? Well, it says that we spent $11.48, and then it says it was $3.28 per pound. So that means we bought multiple pounds. So that kind of suggests that we need to divide the amount of money, $11.48, by the amount that we paid per pound, which is $3.28. Now that looks pretty tricky. Until you remember that the first step is to multiply the divisor by a power of 10 until it becomes a whole number. If you multiply 3 2800ths by 100, it would become 328, which is a whole number. So I multiply by 100, and my divisor gets rewritten as a whole number. Just remember that whatever you multiply a divisor by, you have to do to the dividend as well. So if you multiply the divisor by 100, you have to multiply the dividend by 100. So now I've got 1,148 divided by 328. And this is going to require a little bit of guessing and checking. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do 328 times. And I got to think this through real quick. If I do just a little bit of rounding, I could call that about 300. And then I'm going to try to figure out how that goes into about 1,100. And you can kind of just count by 300s. 300, 600, 900, 1,200. 1,200 would be too high, so I think I'm going to try 3. 3 times 328 is going to be in the 900 range, which is a little smaller. Let's try that. 3 times 8 is 24. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8, and 3 times 3 is 9. 984. I'm not sure that's right, but I suspect it is. Let's go find out. First things first, put your 3 in the quotient above the 8, because I am saying that 328 goes into 1,148, maybe 3 times. And then you're going to light up 984 directly below the 1148. And you're going to subtract. And you might look at this and think you're going to get a big remainder, but that might be okay. 8 minus 4 is 4. I'm going to borrow here and make it 14 minus 8 is 6. And this became, it went from 11 to 10. 10 minus 9 is 1. So you get a remainder of 164, which is a huge remainder, but it is smaller than our divisor of 328. So now think about what we did with our decimal. It got moved over 2 places to the right, then it goes straight up. So I've got my answers 3 point something, but I'm not done. I need to annex this 0 and drop it. And now I have another guess and check. How many times does 328 go into 1640? And I'm again going to round and estimate. How many times does 300 go into 1600. 300, 600, 900, 1200, 1500. If I try 6, that's going to be over 1800. If I try 5, it's going to be 1500 or something. That seems like a good guess. Let's try 5. 5 times 8 is 40. 5 times 2 is 10. Plus 4 is 14. 5 times 3 is 15. Plus 1 is 16. Oh, I scored. I got 1640. 5 times 328 is 1640. And that's cool because 1640 minus 1640 is 0. That means I'm done. So I think the answer is 3.5. I can record that on my line. I can reread and try to find the unit. It says, how much cheese did Michael buy? 3.5 doesn't make tons of sense. What's our unit? With the previous sentence says the cheese costs $3.28 per pound. How much cheese did Michael buy? That tells us our unit is pounds. 3.5 pounds. I like to use the unit LBS. And before I am comfortable moving on to my next question, I am going to check on a calculator. And you can check by division or you can check by multiplication. I'll just punch in $11.48 by $3.28 per pound, and you end up with 3.5 pounds. That is the correct answer. We are going to move on to number 17 and 18. That's going to require that I clear my annotations here and move my board up a little bit. And I am now on numbers 17 and 18. Move my whiteboard up just a little bit. And number 17 reads, a 4-person relay team completed a race in 72 and 4/10 seconds. On average, what was each runner's time? Now, with number 17, if you just skim looking for numerals, you'll only see one number. It's hard to do a division problem when you only have one number, 72.4. The other number is in the form of a word. It's over here. It's 4 people. So what do you divide by what? Well, this word here at the end, average, kind of tells you. If you think about an average problem, typically what you have to do on an average problem is you have to take, like in this, it'd be a bunch of times. Take a bunch of times, add them all up to get the total, which the problem actually does for you, and then divide by the number of people. In other words, these 4 people ran a relay race, and their total time was 72.4. That means that you're going to take 72 and 4/10, and you're going to divide by the number of people. This is the way to set up number 17. So if you remember back to number 15, when you divide a decimal by a whole number, there's no movement of any decimals. The whole key is you need your divisor to be a whole number. Well, in number 17, your divisor already is a whole number. So you can just start dividing. And I'll go pretty fast on this one. If I go too fast, you can replay it. 4 goes into 7 once. 1 times 4 is 4. 7 minus 4 is 3. Bring down the 2. 4 goes into 32 8 times. 8 times 4 is 32. 32 minus 32 is 0. Bring down this 4. 4 goes into 4 once. 1 times 4 is 4. I am done dividing. Now we've got to place our decimal. Like I said at the beginning, there was no movement of any decimals because the divisor was a whole number. So the decimal goes straight up into the quotient. So I get 18.1. We'll need to record our unit properly. It's 18.1 what? Well, reread especially the last line usually has the unit. It says on average, what was each runner's time? Well, if they all completed the race in 72.4 seconds, then that's the unit. The average was 18.1 seconds. Now, I think the best way to check this answer would be to multiply the number of seconds that each runner took, 18.1, times the number of runners, and that should be our dividend, 72.4, and it is. That's proof that we got number 17 right. All right, we will go ahead and erase our whiteboard, read and solve number 18, and then we'll get to number 19, the tricky problem of the day. Let me just clear the whole thing, actually. All right, number 18 reads, Elizabeth has a piece of ribbon that is 4 5/10 meters long. She wants to cut it into pieces that are 0 25/100 meters long. How many pieces of ribbon will she have? Now, I think some kids read these and aren't sure exactly how to set this up. So I want to show you that sometimes a little sketch might not be a bad idea. If you sketched out what she has, it says she has a piece of ribbon. I'm just going to pretend it's stretched out. It says she has a piece of ribbon that is 4.5 meters long. And it says she wants to cut it into smaller pieces that are 0.25. If I just started cutting pieces off that were each 0.25, I hope you can see that this would be like a division problem. And the division problem this is taking the whole, which is 4.5 meters, and dividing that by 25/100. Now I didn't leave myself quite enough room there, so I think I'll erase my sketch. The whole point of the sketch, though, everyone, is that you can recognize that the whole 4.5 meters is going to be divided by the smaller piece, 0 25/100. Now this one looks a little bit tricky because you need to change that divisor into a whole number, and you might not be sure what to do with the dividend. So remember that we multiplied the divisor by a power of 10 until it becomes a whole number. If I multiply that by 10, it would become 2.5. So actually, I need to multiply it by 100 to make it 25. 25/100 times 100 would be 25 whole. Remember that if you multiply a divisor by 100, you have to multiply the dividend by 100. 4.5 times 100 would actually be 450. You move the decimal one place to the right, you annex a 0, and you multiply it, or you move it another place to the right. You always do to the dividend the same thing that you do to the divisor. Now I have 450 divided by 25, which is a pretty simple division problem. 25 goes into 45 once. 1 times 25 is 25. Subtract, you get a difference of 20. Bring down the 0. 25 goes into 200 8 times. It's just like quarters. How many quarters are in $2? It's 8. 8 times 25 is 200. And you're done dividing. Let's analyze our decimal. It was right here. It got moved 2 places to the right. Then it goes straight up. You get 18 whole. Let's see if that makes sense. Reread the final question. How many pieces of ribbon will she have? She will have 18 pieces of ribbon. On all of these other problems, we have checked on our calculator, so we'll do that here as well. One way to do that is to multiply your quotient, 18, by your divisor, 0.25, and you expect it to be your dividend, which is 4.5. So that is correct. Okay, the problem we've all been waiting for, number 19. I will clear my board here, move up my deal, and we will read question 19 together. 19 reads, Lisa paid $43.95 for 16 1/10 gallons of gasoline. What was the cost per gallon rounded to the nearest hundredth? So we're looking for a cost here, and cost problems, money problems, means that we could record our answer as a dollar sign, and that's going to help me with the strategy later. What was the cost per gallon? Another thing kids maybe need a little bit of reminder on is how to set this one up. It tells you the order right here. When it says cost per gallon, that means to take your dollars and divide by the number of gallons. So the dividend is the $43.95. So I'm going to go ahead and write that as $43.95 divided by 16 1/10. First things first, if the divisor is a decimal, we have to multiply it by a power of 10 to become a whole number. That's pretty simple computation. If you multiply 16 1/10 by 10, it would become 161. If you do that to the dividend, you must do that to the divisor. I'm sorry, I said that backwards. If you do that to the divisor, you must do that to the dividend. So you have to multiply 43 95/100 times 10 to become 439 5/10. My decimal will move straight up, but I'm going to wait until I get some digits in there to place it properly. So I now need to do a little bit of guessing and checking. How many times would 161 go into 439? And while you can't exactly use a multiplication chart here, you could use a little bit of common sense. What I like to think about is, instead of thinking this as 161, I could just kind of think of it as 16. And 16s are in your multiplication chart. Your 16s would be 16 times 1 is 16, 16 times 2 is 32, 16 times 3 would be 48, and that'd be too big because I'm going to be subtracting from 43. So I'm going to try 2, 161 times 2. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 6 is 12. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. I get 322. And that might seem a little bit too small, but we'll go ahead and subtract and see what we get. I'm going to put a 2 above this 9 right here because I think that 161 goes into 439 twice. And then I multiplied and I got 322. And I'm going to subtract. 9 minus 2 is 7. 3 minus 2 is 1. And 4 minus 3 is 1. That's an enormous remainder, but it is smaller than the divisor, which is 161. So now I drop this 5, and I have another guess and check problem. How many times does 161 go into 1,175? And I'm going to guess around 6 or 7. I'll remind you that one strategy you could use is you could try one computation, and your partner could try another. I think I'll try 7 here. 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 6 is 42. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 4 is 11. And I got 1127, which is just a little bit smaller than 1175. So my second guess, when I said 6 or 7, my second guess was right. It's about 7 times. 7 times 161 is 1,127. Now, I know I need to subtract, but I'm going to come back to that in just a minute. Once I get some digits in my answer, I like to place my decimal and make sure I'm being smart about this. My decimal was before the 2, but then it got moved one place to the right, and then it goes straight up. So it's in between the 2 and the 7. So right now, my quotient's looking like 2.7. And maybe I should even go back and reread the question real quick before I subtract. I realize that I need to subtract, and I'm not done yet. But I'm going to go back and reread that question. It says, Lisa paid $43.95 for 16 1/10 gallons of gasoline. What was the cost per gallon rounded to the nearest hundredth? Well, I filled up just a couple days ago, and I paid $2.69. Now, I'm not suggesting this is the answer, but if it were, I would record it as $2.69. Now, like I said, it's not exactly the answer here, but look at our quotient we have so far. We have 2.7. I could actually fill that in right now, $2.70-something. Now, I'm not done yet, but let me be smart about this. How many more digits do we need to go to get the proper amount of cents place? Need to go one more. When we do money, we do a dollar amount, and then we have our decimal, and then we have 2 digits for our cents. So we got to do one more, and then we're actually going to have to do one after that to round properly. So let's go ahead and continue, but my whole point is that we don't have to divide forever to get the right answer. So I need to subtract, and I'm going to have to borrow. 15 minus 7 is 8, and I borrowed, making this a 6. 6 minus 2 is 4. And 11 minus 11 is 0, so I have 48. I'm going to annex and drop a 0. And I've got here, how many times does 161 go into 480? And those of you with really good facts are going to recognize this as it's practically 3. But it's not quite, and I'll prove it to you. I'm going to use a calculator just to show you my facts right here. So if I have 106D times 3, it'd be exactly 480, which would be really convenient. What does that mean about 161 times 3? It's going to be just barely over 480. So it's not going to be 3, it's going to be 2. Very, very close. 2 times 161, we actually already did earlier, is 322, so I'm not going to recompute that because I've got it right here. So I'm going to do 322. And I'm going to subtract carefully. Borrow and make it 10 minus 2 is 8. This 8 becomes a 7. 7 minus 2 is 5. 4 minus 3 is 1. I get this big number, 158. It's not exactly as big as the divisor, but it's very, very, very close. So I'm going to go ahead and go back up to my my quotient. I'd have 272. Some kids right here would want to record that as your answer, and you would be very, very, very close to the right answer. I want to be clear about why we can't do that yet. I'm going to go ahead and annex and drop my 0. So if you look at your quotient, 2.72, you think, oh, that's money. I'm good. It's $2.72. So I'll even record that just for a minute. But let me show you why that's actually not right. Let's go back to our division problem. Our remainder from our final step was 1,580, and that's to be divided by 161. And I'm going to go ahead and reuse a little bit of space right here. I've got 161 times. I'm going to assume that it goes in to 1,580 like 8 or 9 times. So I'll try 9. 9 times 1 is 9. 9 times 6 is 54. 9 times 1 is 9, plus 5 is 14. 1,449. Super, super close. So I'm going to record that as a 9. Now we have enough information to record our answer. I realize it keeps going, but we're talking about money here, and we've gone out enough places. So if I tried to write this as my answer, $2.729, that doesn't make a lot of sense, because when it comes to money, we go out 2 places. So what I need to do is go out to this 9 and round it. 9 rounds up. So go back to your answer that you recorded as $2.72. It should actually be $2.73. I'm going to erase that because it's too messy. I can't handle writing such a messy answer there. So $2.73. Then I'm going to check on my calculator and try to show you on the calculator why that should make sense. If you take your dollar amount, $43.95, divide by your gallon, 16 1/10, you get 2.729814, and it continues on. It might even continue past this. I'm not sure if my calculator rounded or not. But like I've said several times, when it comes to money, you take the first 3 digits. The first 2 digits make up the cents. The third digit rounds. So I need 2.729. The 9 is in the thousands place. That rounds up to 3. $2.73. Let's not